You are listening to the In the Mouth of Dorkness podcast. Here are Brad, Lisa, and Darren.
Welcome to another edition of the It Modcast podcast. Joining me is Lisa Gullickson, wife dork.
Hang up the phone and make me, why don't you?
And also joining us is Brad Gullickson, mouth dork.
That's enough to grow hair on a rock.
And I'm your host, Darren Smith, the disco dork. I guess I go in one way or the other. Doesn't mean shit to me. All right, I'll do it. Give me the part and paper. And welcome to the It Modcast podcast, Fistful Friday.
Yay!
Yay!
Wham!
Oh, the Flans are back.
Whoa.
We missed them last week.
Well, we miss Brian, too.
We
Where's
do miss Brian.
He's not here.
Happy Friday, folks.
But
That's my
it's
Brian
still
impression.
Friday. Oh,
Did you miss it? It's really...
I thought that was him. I was like, wait, he's... Okay, never mind. He's
This
not
would
here.
be a great list for Brian, too, because he gets really creeped out by home invasion stories.
That's his bag. It's one of the subgenres of horror films that he will actually stomach.
Are you going to do Brian's 5?
You know what? I did yours when you weren't here, so I kind of have to
I
do
feel
his.
like you have to. I'm excited.
Oh, man.
All right, like Brian, I'm going to make this one up on the spot as we go.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you got to have Kill Bill volumes 1 and 2 in there.
All right. I can do this.
You got to have
The Strangers. You got to have the
500
Strangers.
Days of Summer on there.
I got all of it. I got it. I'm ready. Okay, so listeners, this Friday, today, our fistful, we have a fistful of Keep Out.
Keep Out.
Yes.
And this is in honor of Gabrielle Union's new film. What is it?
Breaking
In.
You know,
All
the
right.
film that we've all been anticipating after Infinity War?
Right. This was our number 2 on our
I
top
like
5,
the
right?
trailer. I'm on the record as enjoying that trailer.
Yeah,
Look forward to it every time it comes on.
Yeah. Well, we all saw it last night. We went to the 7 o'clock screening at Tyson's in Dolby Prime.
I did a back-to-back screening.
Yeah.
This is fiction.
Did not. I'm sorry. All right, we're going to get right into it.
And this is going to be a review cast. So on our next episode, we're all going to, dive in, dig in, unpack what can be found within Breaking In.
Yeah, we'll give you the lowdown on it, okay? In the meantime, hang on to this. This is Brian's number 5 pick for his fistful of Keep Out. Brian's number 5 is Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2: Secret of the Ooze. Because when the turtles were staying at April's house,
This is a good
nice.
one.
right? Like she didn't want anyone to know that they were there. So she was trying to keep people out, but somebody came. Oh, Ernie Reyes Jr. came
the
in.
Pizza Boy.
Pizza Boy came in. Yeah, she was trying to keep him out as far as being in on the secret that she lives with these 4 turtles.
You could have also done Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Part 1, where...
Oh, you better save it. He better save it. He has to come up with 4 more on the fly, Brad.
I do. I need.
Okay, because they replicate that scene from the first movie.
They do. Actually, that's right. They do. Oh, yes, it is.
Yeah, because of that punk redhead.
That's right. Oh, yeah, the kid. Oh, the kid, the
Yeah.
son of the dude, the asshole guy
Yeah.
from April's job.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So yeah,
Maybe that'll pop up later.
Maybe. That's Brian's number 5. Lisa, your number 5.
My number 5 is Kevin McAllister trying to keep the criminals Harry Lime and Marv Merchants out of his home.
The Sticky Bandits.
No, the Wet Bandits.
The Wet Bandits. They changed their name. That's right. All right. Home Alone.
Yeah, so this movie, I loved this movie when it came out. Like it was a huge hit. We were all walking around our house going, ah! So fun.
Oof, I wish we were doing this on YouTube.
Oh, really?
Good Macaulay.
Oh, thank you. To me, it makes home invasion look fun, like a fun hobby to have.
Mm-hmm.
For a little while, I was obsessed with the idea of making booby traps. Like, we had micro machines. We had glass Christmas ornaments. We could string up a paint can.
Did you all do that?
No.
Oh, okay.
No, but I did enjoy thinking about it.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's like Home Alone. I feel like I thought it was one of like my classic Christmas movies, and I hadn't watched it in a long, long time. And then we did that movie, that other Christmas movie, more recently, and
Better Watch Out.
We did Better Watch Out. And it made me nostalgic for that film because they had that paint can moment in that movie, a direct reference to Home Alone. And so I rewatched it, and I was like, "There's way less booby traps than I remember." Like my childhood memory is just wall to wall booby traps, but a lot of it is just like kids are assholes, and Kevin McAllister, it's a real jerk of child, and all of his cousins are worse.
His parents are really freaking shitty parents, like
super shitty parents.
That was a huge oversight.
And the dad being like, there's nothing we can do about Kevin being at home, so we might as well just go to bed in France.
Right.
What? So yeah, I still think it's a super fun movie.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Robert Blossoms is the old man. So good.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
All of those old man scenes. I remember that old man being like really scary, and I really didn't understand the turnaround at the end. I'm like, no, I still find him scary.
He's brutally sad, is what he is.
Yeah.
All right, great pick. B, your number 5.
So my number 5. I don't know if you noticed this, Dan, when you came into the Dork Cave, but I picked up that giant pile of Blu-rays that was over there. The massive pile that had been collecting for like the last year.
Our floor is looking a little bit more clear.
Yeah, you can actually walk over by the television set now, which is nice. But in cleaning up and really why those DVDs were on the ground or those Blu-rays were on the ground was because I just didn't want to alphabetize because it was such a pain in the butt.
Yeah.
But I've done it. I've re-alphabetized my Blu-rays.
Oh, shit.
And while I was doing that, I found a Blu-ray I had not watched yet that I bought a couple years ago. And that was Saturn 3.
Yes.
The Kirk Douglas classic.
Yeah.
And so that's going on as my top 5 Keep Out film because in the not too distant future, the world's going to hell, and they have these various space stations across our galaxy focusing on hydroponics. And on the third moon around Saturn is Kirk Douglas and Farrah Fawcett just going at it like rabbits and loving their hydroponic lifestyle together. And like, what a weird couple, by the way, Kirk Douglas and Farrah Fawcett. And they're infiltrated by who they think is Captain James. But early on in the film, Captain James's shuttle is hijacked by the evil Harvey Keitel, Captain Benson, who has been deemed mentally unstable. And he opens up, he basically does what Peter Parker and Iron Man do to Ebony Maw in Infinity War. Opens up the space dock and blows him out to space. And before he flies into space, he freezes and shatters into a bunch of blood crystals.
If Ebony Maw had done that, I'd have been out of my seat giddy.
Yeah, because it's actually a pretty cool effect.
And that happens in the open. That's the opening scene of the movie.
Right. It's like 2 minutes in.
I always remember being younger and seeing that and being shocked.
So Harvey Keitel, he flies up to Saturn 3, the space station, and also he's dubbed, which is really weird. He doesn't have Harvey Keitel's voice. It's this, like very... It's almost like an Italian spaghetti western dubbed voice.
Do you know the history behind that? Like,
I have no idea. I should have researched that before talking about it, but I chose not to because I'm putting this list together pretty quickly. So Benson comes and he tells Kirk Douglas and Farrah Fawcett, look, one of you has got to go back to Earth. And Farrah Fawcett's never been to Earth. She's fascinated by the culture, but she's also a little scared. And now she's going to have her relationship broken up with, and one of them is going to be replaced by a robot that Harvey Keitel is building. Yeah. And he's building it so that he can insert this new biological brain that he has built from like 27 fetuses. So this like fetus brain is operating the robot, and the robot's got a crazy name. What is it? Hector.
That's the robot's name?
Yes. And Hector, of course, with his 27 fetus brain goes crazy and goes on the hunt. And now Kirk Douglas and Farrah Fawcett have to fight off not only Harvey Keitel, but also this fetus-brained robot named Hector. It is nuts. It's like, what year is this? 1970? No, 1980. Right. Okay. All right. So it's like right after Alien.
Yeah.
And it definitely has a little bit of that, that Alien, not necessarily like the look, but the vibe of corporations running the spaceways. And it's directed by Stanley Donen, although I think he got booted and was replaced by production designer John Barry on this.
Really?
I think so, yeah. And it's a super cheesy B movie with Kirk Douglas. His star is fading. Farrah Fawcett's she's desperately trying to cling to whatever celebrity she got from Charlie's Angels. Mm-hmm. And Harvey Keitel is like a baby in this movie.
He's so young faced.
So young. But I like I said, I had a total blast with the film. And you will too, listeners. And I think it's actually on Amazon Prime right now.
It is on Amazon Prime right now, yes.
Yeah. So yeah, keep Harvey Keitel out. Good luck.
That movie is
Do
nuts.
they?
All right, great pick. Damn, you're right. I would not have guessed that one. All right. My number 5 is gonna be the film The Sandlot. There are these group of kids who they like to play baseball, and the next door neighbor, a grumpy old man, does not like kids in his yard, and he has a fence, and he has a dog called the Beast. On the other side of the fence. And the story, this is a coming of age story of sorts about the summer, but this one particular summer for these group of kids and their love of baseball and where that would take them later on in their adult lives. But one day they accidentally hit a fly ball over the fence, and they have to go and retrieve the ball. Oh, actually, the ball is like a signed
it's by Babe Ruth,
yeah, signed ball, and so they have to venture over the fence and go up against the Beast in order to retrieve this ball. And the old man is played by James Earl Jones, if I'm not mistaken. Yep.
I just watched this the other day.
Really?
Because it's the anniversary. I think it's like the 25th anniversary of the film.
Are you serious?
Yeah. And Alamo did a big movie party, and they gave everybody Sandlot Alamo baseball caps. Yeah.
That's awesome. I didn't know that. All right. A great film. A film that, as 25 years ago, how old was I then? I wasn't a kid. Okay,
middle schooler,
good.
right?
Yeah, was I? Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah. I was a toddler. I was a baby.
No. You were like in high school or something.
Oh yeah. So my freshman year of college, this movie came out. Jesus. But I love the film then. I still do appreciate it and love it now. But yeah, the fence and the Beast that the old man played by James Earl Jones used to keep these kids out of his yard would be my pick for my number 5. All right, Brian's pick for his number 4 is gonna be
You're so mean, Brad, to make him do this.
Yeah, it's so fun.
It's okay. I'm up for the challenge. I'm gonna say it's 500 Days of Summer.
There you go.
And because this film reminds Brian of a very heartbreaking time in his life when he let someone in to his heart in his life, and they broke his heart, and it reminds him of the difficulty of trying to distance himself and grow from that heartbreak. And if he had just kept that person out, maybe he wouldn't have suffered that heartbreak, but he was so kind and generous to let them in that he had to unfortunately go through that, but come out the other side all the better for it.
Is he still trying to keep people out of his heart?
I think so.
On a certain degree.
I think so, because this movie, this was on his last fistful.
It was on his last two fistfuls.
Right. So Brian has some. He's still struggling.
He's processing.
Yeah, he's still processing. So
he and Joseph Gordon-Levitt.
Maybe this should be his number 1. But no, I got his number 1 in the bag.
Oh,
so
nice.
no fear.
Nice.
So yeah, that's Brian's number 4. 500 Days of Summer. Lisa, your number 4.
My number 4 is Don't Stop Me Now from Shaun of the Dead, the scene in the Winchester, keeping the zombies out of the bar where they've decided to hold up.
So good.
Yes.
So good. And I love that moment when Sean flips on the light and you see how many zombies are outside.
I think Dylan Moran's character, his death is one of the super coolest zombie deaths when he's pulled out from the Winchester.
Yes. Oh, man.
And they just immediately start unfurling his intestines.
Yes.
So good.
So
good.
great.
A homage to Day of the Dead?
Yeah, Day of the Dead. That's it.
Yeah. I had Night of the Living Dead on my short list, but if I'm going to go with a super Lisa zombie film, I love Shaun of the Dead. I'm a huge Edgar Wright fan, and I love the idea of zombies as like a metaphor, but I also like zombies being a fun, good time. And there's still plenty of deeper meaning to that film, of course. So fun. Simon Pegg.
Great pick. All right. B, your number 4.
I'm going old school for number 4, 1955. One of the first Humphrey Bogart movies I ever saw, The Desperate Hours, where he plays the leader of 3 convicts who, while on the run from the police, invade a woman's home and hold the family hostage. It was a stage play originally with Paul Newman in the role. And it had the reason you're looking that way is because it had a remake in the 90s.
Is that Michael Keaton?
No, Mickey Rourke and Anthony Hopkins.
Yes. Okay.
And the remake's not bad.
Yeah.
But I certainly prefer the original. Bogart playing a bad dude, basically playing the same character he did in The Petrified Forest. But, he's got a little bit of a heart to him. What's interesting about the movie is that the house is the house that was used in the final seasons of Leave It to Beaver.
Oh.
It was also the first black and white movie shot in VistaVision, which is the widescreen process.
Really?
Yeah. So it's a significant historical landmark, but worth your time. If you have not seen The Desperate Hours and you're curious about Bogart and all you know is Casablanca and The Maltese Falcon, I would point you to this film next.
Yeah. All right. Great pick. My number 4 is going to be I feel like I've used this one, but I'm just doing that in the spirit of Brian not being here. And that's from James Cameron's science fiction action epic Aliens. And it's the scene in the third act of the film where the Space Marines, accompanied by Paul Reiser and also Sigourney Weaver's Ripley and Newt, are in the control room, and they've barricaded themselves in there. And Hudson is still getting readings from his scanner that the blips on the monitor are coming ever so close, and now the machine's reading that they're in the room. If you've seen the film, which you should have by now, you know how that scene plays out. And as disagreeing with James Cameron as I may be today in 2018 with some of the crazy shit that he's saying, I am not above admitting that Aliens is a masterpiece and a masterclass in filmmaking, especially tension and also mixing that with action. This particular sequence, just something as subtle as that monitor and the blips and the sound, and
so good,
coupled with the reaction to the people in the room, it is, for me, and in that film, I think that is the most the most intense moment in that film, just by the way of its staging and how it builds from a suspenseful moment to you have that cathartic release of action once the aliens bust through the ceiling. When Hicks takes the light and looks up into the ceiling tile and sees the xenomorphs crawling.
Oh my God, so good.
And how he just falls back and starts firing, and then just all hell breaks loose. It's an amazing action set piece. It genuinely is. Even to today, compared to action films of today, with how the stakes are so high because the characters have been built up in a way that you care about them up to this point, and then the construction of
but
that.
Even like the minor characters, right? Like even like Frosty,
Yep.
Like the personalities that the actors bring to these tiny roles is significant.
Yep.
It feels like the sci-fi Dirty Dozen.
Yep. And, one of the highlights, if not the highlight of that scene, goes to a specific character who is not the main character. And I would argue that's Bill Paxton's character of
definitely.
Hudson. So, earlier on in the film, he's almost the comic relief. He's almost the space marine who you can't take seriously. And, after the first encounter, when they get their asses handed to him, he's the first one to admit that we're out of our element. He's afraid. He shows fear. And so that can be projected onto the audience that, okay, if this Marine, this big, so-called big bad Marine is afraid and crying with his tail between his legs, then there's a genuine threat here. And then for that character to go from that to, there's a moment prior to the sequence, that's my number 4, where Hudson has a moment between he and Ripley where she says, make yourself useful. Hey, get your head in the game and are you here? Are you good? And he pulls himself together and he says, okay, I'm on it. Because at first he's like, why are we following this little kid? Why don't you put her in charge? But then he goes from that to realizing, he already has an understanding of the severity of the situation, but he realizes that, okay, if I'm going to be here, I have to make myself useful. And he goes from that to that heroic, he's going out guns a-blazing, that blaze of glory when he gets pulled under the ground.
I don't think enough people remember that moment. Everyone does the game over, man, game over.
Yeah.
And they remember how terrified he is before Ripley has that conversation with him. But when he's dying, he's a badass.
He is. Yeah. And it's a great moment and to cap off a great scene. So yeah, that's got to be my number 4 in my Fistful of Keep Out. All right, so Brian's number 3. I'm going to throw a curveball. So I know the listeners, this is probably a great game for long-time listeners. They probably already got Brian's. Darren's going to say either Kill Bill 2 or 1. No, I'm going to throw this one at you. This is a film that I happen to know the Turtle Dork. I can't necessarily say he likes or loves, but it definitely struck a chord with him. And it's Darren Aronofsky's Mother.
Oh,
and so Jennifer Lawrence's character, the mother of the piece, and her wanting people just to get out of her house. There's that moment when everything goes shit
off the
house,
sink,
and and she wants to get those people out of the house. And from there, it just escalates. Well, actually, the movie is just all escalation, if you ask me. But from that moment, particularly when those people come uninvited into her home, and so what's more violating than people breaking into your personal space and you wanting them to get out. And in the case of this particular character, her feeling so helpless in a way because nothing she says or does is making any difference. And, that feeling of powerlessness or, futility for me is what I think adds to, on top of the chaos of all these strangers in her home, with just her not being able to do anything about it. It just stretches that tension out and that stress. So I would say that Brian would pick that for his number 4.
Brian.
Yeah, good on you, dude. So Lisa, your number 3.
My number 3 is the car scene in Cujo.
Yeah.
So
Lisa.
fucking terrifying. Is that on your list? Because I was thinking
Great pick.
times when you're trapped, and I was thinking of like there's the car scene in Jurassic Park is one, but I feel like
falling down on the freeway, trapped in that traffic.
oh god,
Oh man,
Defense.
But the car scene in Cujo is just the most oppressive because it is so long. So they're Dee Wallace and her son Tad, not real son, pretend it's a movie.
It's the kid from Who's the Boss.
Really?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. I barely remember Who's the Boss.
Angela!
So to escape this rabid dog, they get into the Ford Pinto, and, the kid is sobbing, and he's, barely articulate. He's crying so hard, and she's just trying to comfort him while this terrifying Saint Bernard is, attacking the outside of the car and just trying to get in so he can maul them to death and give him their rabies. So it starts out as this super frenetic, terrifying scene, but then the car breaks down, and then it's just this waiting game of the dog will become disinterested and start kind of like wandering away, but then some kind of noise will happen or something, and then the dog is all riled up again, and at one point he's like ramming the car with his head and like leaving these like blood splatters on the car because he's like ramming it with such force, and he's climbing on the roof. It's so scary. And then it gets to the point where they're in like, I don't know if they're in like Texas or something.
No, they're
where are they? It's
well,
like,
in the book, it's Castle Rock. They're in Maine.
Yeah,
but I don't know
like,
where the hell the
it's
movie
hot.
takes place.
Like the point is that it's hot, and so Donna realizes that if they don't get out of the car, they're going to die of heat exhaustion inside this car. So she finally has to leave the car. That don't go so smooth. That doesn't go well at all. But yeah, in terms of trying to keep something out, keeping that terrifying, frothy, matted Saint Bernard.
I love
Beethoven.
Cujo. Yeah. I love Cujo.
That's my number
two.
pick.
It's such a simple movie. Like, dog gets rabies, unleashed upon the town. You're all
So
screwed.
scary.
And so scary. Shot so well.
Yep. And the fact that the drama coming from, well, this was my pet, this was my beloved family animal, this was my family member.
Yeah, like when Dee Wallace is in the car and the kid is crying and he's like, "It's a monster, it's the monster," and she goes, "Look, it's not a monster, it's just a doggy." Like she uses the word doggy.
Yeah.
Yeah, Dee Wallace is amazing.
Amazing. Yep. And I think a lot of the effect came from actually terrifying a child. Like that kid is sad, is really upset.
Yeah. Great pick.
Thank you.
All right, B, your number 3.
My number 3 also has Dee Wallace in it.
Yeah.
It's Critters.
Yeah.
Like when people talk about alien invasion, or monster invasion movies, they talk about Night of the Living Dead, Signs, but Critters, it's obviously inspired by the success of Gremlins.
Yep.
But it is a way different kind of movie. It's much trashier. It's very much a B movie. But again, like focusing on that family dynamic of mom and dad, Dee Wallace and Billy Greenbush. And what's interesting about Critters is it's truly a farm family. It's a setting that a Midwestern setting you don't see too often in cinema, or at least in a honest way. And I feel like Billy Greenbush as the rancher dad feels genuine. He feels like the Gullickson farm up in North Dakota.
Yeah.
And they've got Don Opper. He's Charlie the handyman. He's the local drunk who paranoid. He thinks people are talking to him through the fillings in his teeth. And then, guess what? Aliens from space come down, start eating cows, get larger, come after the family. And it comes down to, little Bradley and Charlie the drunk, plus Ugg the alien bounty hunter to take down the Krites.
Yes.
And it's just a total blast. And I love that scene where they're all held up in the bedroom. And, Dee Wallace is attempted to go outside with her shotgun. The dad's been poisoned by one of the porcupine shooters, and she's got her shotgun. She blasts a couple of the critters, but they fall back into the bedroom, and they put the dresser drawer against the door. And as the teenage daughter is like pushing the drawer up against the door, the Krite that has been eating the most amount of cow and has grown to like man size busts through the dresser drawer and like grabs a hold of her arm, and you see that the critter is just massive now.
Yeah.
I love that movie. I love that movie.
Another movie with Dee Wallace where she's trying to keep something out of her house away from her children. Close Encounters of the Third Kind.
She's not in that.
She's
in E.T.
I'm sorry.
You're thinking of, who's the mom in Close Encounters of the Third Kind? Terry Hatcher. No, not Terry Hatcher. From Mom and Dad Save the Universe.
Oh, Terry Garr.
Terry
Yes,
Garr.
that's right. That's right. Okay, yes, you're right. All right. Sorry, fellow nerds and geeks.
But, she wants to keep the government out in E.T. Get out of here, government.
That's true. That's true. All right. Great pick. Critters. God damn, I got to go back and rewatch that one. My number 3 is going to be You're Next. Adam Wingard's
Son of a bitch.
film
That's my number 2.
If you haven't seen this movie, do yourself a favor and check it out. I will say I am recommending it, and it's on my list, on our list.
Nope, taking it off.
All right. It's on my list because it's in the vein of home invasion films, but the movie wisely does something different with its protagonist and antagonist that I've found extremely refreshing upon initially seeing the film.
It's not The Strangers where things are just punishing, there's
bleak.
Yeah, there's some there's the opposite of that.
Yeah, there's some circumvention of expectations and subgenre conventions of the home invasion film that I think would.
Cujo's outside, guys.
Oh, God.
That scared the shit. That's the first thing I thought about.
He's one of our cute neighbor dogs.
So yeah, that's going to be
now.
my number 3. Adam Wingard's "You're Next."
So good. That movie is so good.
Let's see. So Brian's number 2. I'm gonna throw another curveball. It's gonna be Coco, and it's regarding the land of the dead and how you're kept out if you don't have any memorabilia in the land of the living representing you. Like you're not allowed in if no one remembers you. And so I know Brian enjoyed this film, as we all did, but he definitely found that movie and specifically the ending of that film extremely touching. And for me, I found the end of it when is it his uncle? Is the uncle character?
Yeah. No. Well, it's his dad. No, it's not.
It's not his father.
No, hold on. It's the grandmother's father.
Yes.
And so it's his grandfather.
Great grandfather.
No, it's just great grandfather because it's his grandmother's father.
Okay, yeah. So his great grandfather. That moment when he is allowed to cross the bridge, when he is no longer kept out. For me, to come back and visit is the moment. I don't know. I found extremely touching. But yeah. So Brian really digs that movie, and it tugs at his heartstrings, which he likes a little tugging every now and then. So I would.
Does he really? Does he like a little tugging?
Yes.
Every
trust
once
me.
in a blue moon?
Yep. Trust me. I've known this dude for a long time. So yeah, I feel confident in that this would be a good pick for his number 2. All right, Lisa, your number 2 and your Fistful of Keep Out.
My number 2, I decided to go back into the home invasion genre with a 1967 film, Wait Until Dark, starring Audrey Hepburn.
Yes.
This movie's great. I saw it first at the Alamo Drafthouse as part of Secret Society of Filmmasons, I believe.
Yep.
And Audrey Hepburn plays Susie, who is blind. And she's newly blind, so she is having a hard time adjusting to being kind of dependent. And her husband is kind of babying her and not letting her try things and trying to keep her very sheltered. So meanwhile, he's off at work or something, and these guys come to her house looking for a doll. And unbeknownst to her, this doll was slipped to her husband at the airport because it was hiding drugs. And so the dudes come to this house looking for this doll, but they come under the guise of, oh, we're friends of your husband, and we asked your husband to hold on to this for you. And she doesn't know where it is, and she doesn't assume anything. She's just like, yeah, sure, totally. My husband's very popular. He's got tons of friends. He and he's using clues because he's sighted. He's using clues from around the house to like seed her personal information. Extremely clever criminals in this storyline. So eventually, she realizes that she's being taken advantage of. She starts becoming suspicious, and but they've already set her house because she's blind. They've already set her house so that they can get back in. So when she realizes that happened and their coming is inevitable, she starts coming up with a plan of how to keep them out of the apartment, or if they come into the apartment, what is she going to do? And so she uses her disability to her advantage, and she turns the lights out. Thrilling movie, totally dynamically shot. Really, pretty much the whole movie takes place in this one apartment, pretty much. And it is totally compelling. And I think really feels very current. It doesn't feel like a dated 60s film in so many ways. And, Audrey Hepburn, gorgeous and impeccable.
That's been remade recently, right? If I'm not mistaken.
I don't know.
I mean, Hush is kind of like Wait Until Dark, but I don't know if it's necessary. It's not a remake. Maybe there is. I'm not sure.
Because I want to say I've seen a movie play in this same type of way, but it wasn't this one. I mean,
I was thinking of what this reminds me of is the movie Don't Breathe.
Oh yeah. Oh damn.
Jesus.
I know.
That'd be a great pick too, because he wanted the kids out of his house. Keep out of my house.
That's right, because he had some freaky shit going on downstairs.
Oh yeah. Oh my goodness. Oh,
I'm so sorry to bring this film back to you in waves.
Turkey baster.
Oh my god.
Man.
There was a 1982 TV remake starring Catherine Ross and Stacy Keach.
Okay. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
Look at. I'd like to watch that.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. Great pick.
Thank you.
Great pick, Lisa. All
Nailing it this week.
Yeah, you are. Brad, you're number 2.
All right. I had to do an audible because I was going to do your next.
Yeah.
But I've decided.
Did you Don't Breathe?
No turkey basters here.
Oh.
Keep out turkey basters.
Yeah, we're keeping turkey basters out of this podcast. Oh no, we're failing. So much semen. 1986 Chopping Mall.
Yes.
3 rogue security robots short circuit and turn against the mall employees before they can escape the mall. And these 3 little robots are blowing up heads and slaughtering teenagers because those robots want people out of the mall.
Yes.
So it's been a while since I've watched this film, but I am due for a revisit.
You should watch it with your wife because I've never seen it and I'm intrigued.
I would be curious to get your response to it. It is produced by Roger Corman's wife, Julie. It was written or co-written by Steve Mitchell, who I interviewed last year because he directed the Larry Cohen documentary, King Cohen. Yeah. Huh. So he's the pen behind Chopping Mall.
Also known as Killbots.
Also known as Killbots. Yeah. It's got an amazing exploding head sequence. I know it's
one of my faves.
That. Yeah, without a doubt. Dick Miller pops up in it, of course, for a brief cameo. It's a lot of fun. Barbara Crampton's in it. It's I've been having... I feel like in the last few years, I've spent so much of my time consuming contemporary cinema that I have not explored the past and I have not revisited the past as much as I once did.
Yeah.
And so, we talked about on the Weekend Dork, I watched the Billy D. Williams film Hit.
Yep.
I had such a blast with that. I rewatched Critters recently, and I'm gonna and I had so much fun in the build up to Ready Player One, seeing like Back to the Future again, and The Last Starfighter, and Iron Eagle, and all those crazy 80s movies.
Yeah,
I'm gonna do a little more of that in the back half of this year.
Yeah,
and I want to watch the classics I still have yet to see. We talk about every year our Fistful of Resolutions.
Yeah.
We fell away from doing that. Lisa, get on the whackness. You got to watch the whackness.
Oh, shit. Yeah, I do. That's your DVD, Darren.
Yeah.
I completely blanked on that.
And now that I've been watching like Shaw Brothers films, it's time for me to connect with cinematic history once more. Break out the criterions.
Yeah.
So... yeah, and I guess that means Chopping Mall, too.
Yes.
It's time to revisit Chopping Mall.
Which, by the way, shout out to Arrow's video or whatever.
Yeah!
Has one of the most misleading box covers of all time.
Very much
I have to admit, while I liked it, now I enjoy the movie for what it is. I have to admit, When I first saw that movie, I was disappointed because I did not see anyone wielding a hand with saw blades on the knuckle at any point in that film.
No saw blade knuckles.
But great pick though. Love that exploding head. Speaking of which, brings me to my number 2, and that is Raiders of the Lost Ark. Keep out of the goddamn Ark of the Covenant, man, unless you want your face melted or your head exploded.
Look, it was one of my backups.
Because great minds think alike.
Keep out Nazis.
Yes.
Always.
What else needs to be said about that film? Speaking of like older films and cinema history, a perfect film, like one of the few perfect films. In regards to memorable characters, in regards to storytelling, in regards to filmmaking, pacing, editing, everything across the board is one of it's one of those lightning in a bottle things.
And it's one of those movies that we certainly cherish as dorks. It is a continuation of other geeky things. You know, it's Spielberg being raised on serials and putting his own spin on it and elevating the genre.
You talk about Harrison Ford, man. This guy not only has Han Solo as a memorable cinematic screen presence or character, but he has Indy. He has Indiana Jones, and
I'll take Indiana Jones over Han Solo any day.
Yeah,
just FYI.
Okay. Yeah, you know what? Hit us up on social media, listeners. Let us know at It Podcast. Who do you prefer, Indy or Solo? Who wins?
You'd be foolish not to pick Indy.
Yeah?
Yeah, foolish.
Yeah?
Foolish.
But Han Solo doesn't have his charms?
I mean, yeah, but he's just a scoundrel. Who cares?
Oh, damn. Okay. All right.
He's a scruffy nerf herder.
That's it.
Yeah. He got taken out like a punk.
Well, maybe this new movie will shed some light on, give us a new perspective.
I got a really good feeling about this.
All right, ladies and gentlemen. So that's my number 2. Brian's number 1. It is not Leon.
What?
It
could be
who's
Leon
trying to keep out. Everyone.
Yes. But it's not Leon. It is not Amelie. It is not Kill Bill. It is Black Panther. It is because the nation of Wakanda wants to keep out outside influences. But we would later learn that would be a change of policy, so to speak, and they would open their borders up to everyone. But initially, and their long-standing history is to keep everyone else out from their highly technologically advanced society. And I happen to know that Black Panther is Brian's favorite MCU film, and I would expect that he would have this somewhere on his list, if not at number 1. But then again, maybe not.
You did a great job there, Darren.
Thank you. So that's Brian's number 1.
No Kill Bill though.
Yeah, he might have something to say about that. But if he was here, he could have said it himself. So guess what? I do the picking. Lisa.
Yes.
Your number 1 and your Fistful of Keep Out.
My number 1 is keep the neo-Nazi punks out of the green room. Absolutely. This was the first movie I thought of when we talked about doing a Fistful of Keep Out.
That was a great pick.
And the image that popped into my head was Anton Yelchin doing the exchange and getting his hand hacked up with the box cutter. Just that like quick shick, and then such an ugly wound, and his like little hand dangling and crazy in the screaming. It is awful.
Yeah.
And then quickly this movie turns from keep out to get the fuck out.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
GTFO.
This movie just sticks with me. It is so terrifying. But the cast, like the actual like kids that are trapped in the situation, I just love that cast. I love those people.
Yep.
Such a great I don't know. And all of these beautiful people just being picked off one at a time by the most evil and hateful bastards that you've ever seen. Just
Patrick
fucking the
Stewart's
worst.
so good. In that
So
movie.
terrifying. So scary. You know, like
That's a film that, while it does play as everything you just described now, like if you watch that now on Blu-ray or at home on TV, it does play that way. But this is one of those movies that does take on a different form when you watch it theatrically in an auditorium, especially with a sound system and an audience that is in the throes of the suspense and terror as you are. Because
it is a tense film. It is a pressure cooker.
Yeah.
And there's just one moment at the end of the film where it's just a release of that tension right before you go out. Like, because I'm just like, as soon as this movie ends, I'm having a nervous breakdown.
Yeah.
Like, that's how tremendously tense I was the first time watching this film. Darren was sitting next to me.
Yeah.
And I could just barely handle it.
Yeah.
And but like, it's one of those, it's like once you know how it's going to go, you immediately want to watch it again.
Yeah.
So good.
So good.
Amazing performance from Anton Yelchin.
Yep.
Gone too fucking soon.
Yep. Man,
Criminal.
great pick. I cannot believe that did not pop up in my head, because that is a perfect pick.
Thank you.
Good job. B.
Almost as good as Brian's Fistful.
Your number one.
My number one, when you think of siege films, this is the film that I always go to. We've talked about it a lot on this podcast. It's John Carpenter's 1976 film Assault on Precinct 13. And it is these police officers and their secretaries on the last day of the precinct's operation. They're closing down shop, moving across town. LA gang is retaliating for some horrible violence placed upon their comrades by the police department. And, you know, we all went and saw it at the AFI Silver not too long ago. And watching it now with contemporary context, that opening scene in particular really throws a different light onto the proceedings of Assault on Precinct 13. And it's hard to root for this buddy-buddy partnership between police officer and criminal fending for themselves against this gang armada. And it's a movie that has been remade once before with Ethan Hawke and Lawrence Fishburne in the lead roles, and Gabriel Byrne leading an army of corrupt cops. And it's not terrible. It's not necessarily great, but it's not terrible. I was thinking, though, I would love to see a 2018 remake of Assault on Precinct 13 taking on the societal horrors of today.
Oh my God, that is a heavy fucking film.
You know what that movie would feel like? Fucking Green Room.
It would feel like Green Room, and I think I would
maybe worse.
I think it'd feel a hell of a lot worse.
Yeah.
And I think it would have a tremendous impact.
Oh man.
And you know,
who do you get to direct that?
Well, that's an interesting question. I hadn't really thought about that.
Say Jordan Peele.
Oh man.
I mean, that would be interesting. Jordan,
because the remake of Assault on Precinct 13 doesn't.
It's like Louis Leterrier.
And it doesn't. It's not saying anything. I'm doing air quotes now.
It's saying absolutely nothing.
Right?
It's all style.
Whereas Carpenter's, the reason why you mentioned our rewatch of that being so timely and affecting us the way it did was because that film, even then, but more importantly today, or when we saw it, has something to say. And I think, you know,
I think there's just there's a lot of meat on its bones, and it would be a hell of a feast. It would be a painful watch, certainly. But yeah, Jordan, that's an interesting idea. You know, with Jordan Peele, it's so interesting. I'm using Brian's word a lot. Interesting. We're in this period where he's made Get Out, which was my favorite film of last year. Was Brian's favorite film of last year. I know it was on Lisa's top 10. It was like it had. It has a whole shelf devoted to itself in the Dork Cave. It's a movie of great importance to us. And at the same time, like, what a tremendous weight on a filmmaker to come out the gate with such a piece of art.
That's his fault for being so brilliant.
Yeah, and oh boy, don't sophomore slump on us, Peele. Assault on Precinct 13 would allow him to go into another genre, but also carry on the story that he was telling with Get Out. That's actually pretty good, Darren. Yeah.
So I would pay to see that.
Yep.
As going in, knowing as a harder watch that would be, I would pay to see that. Specifically to hear what he has to say.
And like, I wouldn't want to reuse Carpenter's score, even though it's so damn amazing. You know, they're redoing Halloween this year, and I'm excited to see what happens with that. And Carpenter's coming on board to bring, you know, his talents to this film. But I'd like to see somebody, you know, Giacchino it. You know, not necessarily picking Giacchino, but the way he takes Lalo Schifrin's Mission Impossible scores and reworks them, and the way he takes, you know, Jerry Goldsmith and John Williams, you know, in Star Trek and Star Wars and plays around with them. Like to take the idea behind the Carpenter score and find something as equally dreadful as that score. Yeah, I don't know. Let's make this happen, Internet.
Yeah, let's do it. That's a great pick, B. Not surprised. So it's also not come as a surprise that my number one is from Lisa. You had Shaun of the Dead on yours. I would have to have 1968's Night of the Living Dead, George Romero.
50 years old this year.
That's crazy. But if we're talking about siege film, if we're talking about people, a dichotomy of people being in one place and trying to keep something out while dealing with what's on the inside as well, you have to talk about that movie. And if we're already in the conversations of movies that are commentaries on our social political climate or where we are as people today, you know, this movie still has relevancy 50 years later. And so, you know, there are so many different reviews, articles, and conversations about this film that have been had and will continue to be had that I'm not going to add anything new to it, but just to, you know, to understand the importance of this film in cinema history and in our culture and what it will go on to inspire. Like Lisa's pick would not be her pick. That movie would not exist, I don't think, if this movie had not been made and done in the way that it was. And so, and again, this movie is you know, Get Out being a genre film that is also speaking on.
Yeah, Get Out wouldn't be around.
Exactly. So I you know, a huge debt is owed to what George Romero did back in '68, and this was a film that we got to see on the big screen not too long ago, and that presentation was amazing. But also just to see, you know, it's funny how that you talked about that rewatch of Assault on Precinct 13 and how our lives, our real world lives, affected the perspective or the, you know, our emotional takeaway from that film. And I just find it interesting and fascinating, and I appreciate it when that happens with art and with our culture and with our pop culture and stuff like that. And seeing Night of the Living Dead on the big screen, but seeing something that was made before my time by someone whom I've never met, regarding circumstances that I had not experienced yet, but seeing a parallel between that time, this piece of art in my life, in my society, is something that I find infinitely fascinating and so appreciative of. You know, because we talk about movies as a church, and we love to go and be entertained, and they're, you know, empathy machines and things like that. But also when they touch us in ways that, you know, are that we don't necessarily have to even speak about or we can't put into words. It's just experiences.
And how, with a film like that, you watch it at one age. Mm-hmm. And it means something. And then you watch it at another age, and it means something. And then you watch it at another age, and it means something else.
Yeah. It's crazy. The film doesn't change at all. But when we change, like the scenes in the film don't change. The actions don't change. The decisions the characters make don't change. But as we get older and we change, that movie changes.
You look at 1968, and that year gave you Night of the Living Dead, Planet of the Apes, and 2001.
Yeah.
And like all three of those movies, I have had a long relationship, a long evolving relationship with all three of them. Like to your point.
Yeah.
It was a great year of movies. Jesus.
Oh, goodness, man. I never thought about that those three movies came out that year. That's incredible. Mm-hmm. And they're still around to this day. They still have life. They still have life. They still inspire film and filmmakers and people.
The new criterion of Night of the Living Dead unbelievable. If you've seen that film before and you're like, oh, I love Night of the Living Dead, you need to pick up this new restoration because you've never seen this movie like this.
So that's my number one. Ladies and gentlemen, hit us up on social media. Let us know what your Fistful of Keep Out. Let us know what that is.
Where do you think Breaking In is going to fall in our list? How's it going to compare to Night of the Living Dead, Shaun of the Dead?
Some are fun.
Yeah, I wouldn't
Little
necessarily.
summer fun at the movies.
I wouldn't put it in that conversation. I might put it in conversation with like something like the movie Kidnapped or Dope.
Dude, Kidnapped was almost on my list. If it's like a third as Ted says Kidnapped, I'm going to be devastated.
I don't think that movie's going to be anywhere near what Kidnapped is because that movie is rough. I almost had it on my list, but I was like,
Same.
I don't want to depress
Now
myself.
I'm
I did too.
Now I'm hoping that Breaking In is like the most vital movie of our time.
I hope so.
I go into every movie hoping
Tune
that.
in, listeners. We're doing our review cast.
Yeah.
You just got a couple days, and you're going to get the straight dope on Breaking In.
And if you're tired of hearing just us three and you want to hear Brian again, you have to tune in. So do that because he'll be back. That's going to do it for us. You can follow the podcast on social media and let us know what your fistful is at ItModcast. Brian is at The Turtle Dork on Twitter, at The Turtle Dork 1 on Instagram, and at Brian William Young on Facebook. On Twitter, Wife Dork is at Bake Dork and Sidewalk Siren. She's also at Sidewalk Siren on Instagram and Letterboxd. Brad Gullickson is at Mouth Dork on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Letterboxd, and Untapped. And I'm Darren Smith, the Disco Dork on all social medias. That's going to do it for us. Thank you all for listening. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. Go see Breaking In, and then go see Avengers Infinity War again. And then enjoy the rest of your weekend. That's going to do it for us. Thank you all for listening. And until next time.